Like the Reggae Boys on the field, the head coach Halldórsson was in attack mode following his side's emphatic 4-1 victory over Trinidad and Tobago in the CONCACAF Gold Cup on Wednesday night. Jamaica proving too good for the Trinbagonians in the Group A encounter played at City Park Field in St. Louis, Missouri. Demarai Gray scored twice on his 27th birthday, while Leon Bailey and Dejon Richards were also on target. Richards becoming the youngest Jamaican to score at CONCACAF's showpiece event. Andre Rampersad netted a 49th minute goal for Trinidad and Tobago, inspiring a short period of hope for the Soca Warriors. But they couldn't turn it around, resulting in Coach Halldórsson's first win in his 9th game in charge of the Reggae Boys. He was asked whether it was a relief to finally win a game. He says it never affected him.
I'll tell you another fact. I haven't lost a competitive game for Jamaica. And that is what matters in the end, the competitive matches. And no, I'm pretty sure this team will grow as a lot of new players starting to play for us, and yeah, we've selected some new players, young players, etc. So they will only, and we will only grow as the tournament gets older. But I have to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff, to Meron Gordon, who had this meeting I talked about yesterday, just to explain how much this game means for Jamaicans, and I think he set the tone for the whole week, or for the 4 days of preparation for this game. And I think the focus level was really high all this match, and I want to give him a lot of credit for this preparation for this match.
Yeah, Halldórsson was also on the front foot when defending the decision to select Dejon Whisper Richards to the squad.
Normally I don't like to talk about individual players, but I was criticized for picking the kid, or we were criticized by picking the kid, and he only needed 10 minutes to score a goal. So that shows why we selected him, and he's I don't think even he knows what he's going to do. The opponents don't know what he's going to do, and he's lethal. I have to admit, when he took the shot, I was, why are you shooting from this range? But he scored from it. So, you know, he's kind of a guy that defies the odds a little bit. And all teams need players like him. And like we said on the press conference yesterday, he has a lot to learn, but he still knows a lot and can do a lot today.
All-out attack from coach Halldórsson. Meanwhile, as expected, the Trinidad and Tobago head coach Angus Eve was disappointed with his team's performance, especially in the first half.
You know, unfortunately, we seem to be a little bit nervous tonight. I think names probably scare us, and you know, we really made some bad mistakes tonight. But all in all, I take full blame for the result, because I'm the coach of the team.
Yeah, Angus Eve taking responsibility for his team's disappointing performance against the Reggae Boys. Joining us, football correspondent Simon Evans and former Trinidad and Tobago defender Brent Sancho. Gentlemen, it's great to have you again on the Sportsmax Zone. Jamaica dominating last night's encounter. Brent, you had suggested that this was a possibility because of the quality that the Jamaicans possess. And that's exactly what we saw in the game, a 4-1 result.
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo, for having me on. I know I was promised by the producers to have my couple of seconds of ranting as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago football. But I think we have to put things in context here. At the end of the day, the Trinidad and Tobago football is where it is because of malpractice over the many, many years. And I think the result on the park is indicative of what has been the malpractice of Trinidad and Tobago football. The mere fact that we have a situation where we cannot compete at the level that the Jamaicans can presently is indicative of that as well. The mere fact that we cannot call on similar type of English-based players because the powers that be does not want to support the footballing movement in terms of bringing players with the lineage, the Trinidad and Tobago lineage that born in the UK. That's another reason. We've just had a local league here in Trinidad and Tobago that had next to zero corporate support. So how do you expect players to develop, move on, and have the right funding to do the right thing? So before I start talking X's and O's and the reasons why we didn't do well from a game perspective, I found it very important that I coined it a rant, but to make sure that our viewers understand the context of where I'm coming from. It's extremely humiliating, disappointing, especially being part of the History Making 2016, to see the sport where it is currently, and a lot of it is a lot bigger than the result that we saw in St. Louis.
Yeah, but one would have to say that we saw the result coming, Brent. Those who know the football and would have seen both teams play in the build-up to this match. We had Lassana Librard on Monday, and although Trinidad and Tobago beat St. Kitts and Nevis by 3-0 in their opening match, he feared that something like this could happen against the Jamaicans, so it shouldn't come as a massive surprise, should it?
No, it doesn't come as a surprise. I talked yesterday about the defensive frailties that Trinidad and Tobago has, and I wasn't just talking about their lapse in terms of concentrating and the simple, basic things that come with defending. We saw it in the game, and that's how the goals were given up. But there's also the other side of it. If you cannot string together 2-3 passes to, of course, move the ball and progress the ball further up the park, it makes no sense playing at this level. And we saw that yesterday. Defensively, we were shambolic. And because of that, it laid the platform for the type of performance that we saw in Jamaica. There's a lot of people here in Trinidad and Tobago talked about playing too defensive, talked about a different lineup, talked about playing more offensive players. If we did that, we probably would have had a similar scoreline or more. We cannot, because our defenders cannot defend in 1v1 situations, and they would have been exposed to what I consider to be the best front three in this competition. The likes of Gray, of course, Antonio, and Bailey. So whether or not we play a 10v1, a 1v2, or whatever system you want to call it, this result, as you rightfully said, was always in the making.
Yeah, let's bring Simon in on the discussion. Simon, how did you see it? I'm sure you enjoyed the performance of the Jamaicans, quite clinical, especially in that first half.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's two stories here, isn't there? The Trinidad were shockingly bad. I mean, it was a performance that, you know, not having seen Trinidad for quite a while, I was a little bit taken aback by how poor they were. And I say that with some sadness, having, you know, enjoyed what Trinidad's produced in the past. On the other hand, Jamaica, I mean, it's all been about that front three, hasn't it? You know, are they going to click? Will it work? Because on paper, there's no doubt they are the best front three, as Brent said, in CONCACAF. And they looked it last night. I mean, I still think they've got some work to do and some improvement to make, combining and working effectively as a trio. But the individual strength of all three of those players, particularly Antonio, I think, down the middle, who just keeps the defenders so occupied. You know, he's so strong on the ball, shrugging off his markers and so on. And then Demarai Gray, you know, really showing his quality that we know he has, and he hasn't always had the best opportunities at club level, but really showing it in the Jamaica shirt. So a lot of positives for Jamaica, I think. But yeah, I agree with Brent's analysis on Trinidad. It's something that has deep roots that go back a long time.
Yeah, there is so much to talk about with this game in particular. I want a comment, though, because I think it's so easy to focus on Demarai Gray and Michael Antonio, Bobby Reid. And yes, they have been quite instrumental in what the Reggae Boys have done so far and in what they did last night. But I want to comment on as well on two of the midfield players, Latibadir, who I think has been pretty good, and Kevin Lambert, who I think has surprised many individuals here in Jamaica with how well he's played in the first two matches of this campaign. Your thoughts? I'll start with you, Simon, and then Brent, on how effective these two have been in this Jamaican setup.
Yeah, it's the pressing in midfield, isn't it? You know, that's and Lambert, you know, winning that challenge to set up. I think it was the second goal.
Yeah, Leon Bailey.
You know, really good, strong challenge, and then looks up and finds Antonio straight away. There was a good level of, you know, positive aggression and pressing from Jamaica that came from that midfield. And you're right, it is easy to focus on those three. It wouldn't be working at all if the 8 behind them weren't effective. And they have been, you know, they've been pretty solid at the back. It's looking like a Jamaica team that could make a deep run in this tournament.
Yeah, Brent?
Yeah, I think what it's been able to do, it's not only allow the front three to do what they are good at doing, but it also lets Origi to go a bit further forward because they cover so much ground in behind them, the middle two, that it makes the task of the others in front of them a lot easier. Certainly from a pressing perspective, they're quite good. And what I like about them from the offensive side of things is that they understand their role. They understand that they have to get the ball quickly to their strengths, which is, as we mentioned, the front three and Origi make it four, to do what they do best. And because they're able to do that, it makes Jamaica a really, really strong threat, as Simon rightfully said, to go deep in the competition.
Yeah, Brent, just one quick question, and just talking about, because you are right, and I've been impressed with the simplicity of how the Reggae Boys have looked to play. They know that the best ball handlers in the team are the likes of Antonio and Gray, and they have been finding them consistently. Same for Bobby Reid as well. When we come up like teams that set up better defensively and also press and put pressure on the ball when the Reggae Boys have the ball, how much tougher will it be to play that way?
Well, you looked at them against the US game in the first game, and I thought they handled themselves quite well. They were able to progress the ball forward and get it into the feet. I remember leading up to this competition, there were a lot of Jamaicans that were not happy with the type of football that was being played by the national team. And I did say that the emphasis should always be to get the ball as quickly as possible to your strengths, which is that front three. And they have been able to do that. And a lot of the reasons why they've been able to do that is, A, the defenders are getting, of course, the ability to pass it and play it into these two midfielders who progress the ball quite quickly to the front three, front four. And that's been the strength. And I think as they go deeper into the competition and play teams like the USA, who would press quite high up the park, like Mexico, Canada, etc., once you're able to do that, you give yourself every opportunity to win football games. And I think they can do it at that level as well.
Yeah, Brent, I want to ask you something about the TNT starting roster. You alluded to the starting lineup and the team selection that you didn't think mattered really. But before that, Simon, a quick thought on the 17-year-old Dejon Whisper-Richards, who, as you heard the coach Halldórsson say a few minutes ago, took only 10 minutes to prove the selection committee correct that they made a good choice in picking him. Of course, he has been signed by Chelsea now in England. Your thoughts of what you've seen from him so far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the shot took a big deflection, didn't it? But that shouldn't take away from what was a really, very high energy performance that he brought. I think, Chelsea don't sign players like that without having done some good, solid scouting and being sure that they're investing in a player who's got a future. So I'm surprised that there was a debate about it. I mean, he's young, yes, but this is a tournament where we've seen plenty of young players come through and make a mark for themselves. So I think, he looked like a player who was very comfortable at this level.
Yeah, Brent, the starting roster for TNT, you just said that you didn't think, changing the starting roster would have made much of a difference because the real problem in the TNT team at the moment is their defensive frailties. But were you even a little surprised that Ovre didn't start, or is he 100% fit? Because every time he touches the ball, he looks threatening.
Yeah, he looks threatening, and of course, albeit you have to take things again into context. He's looked threatening against St. Kitts, he looks threatening against Nicaragua, but this is Jamaica. And I don't think he would have been given the sort of time and space at the length of a 90 minutes to make the kind of impact. I don't think it was that type of game, Lance. He would not have seen a lot of the ball. He would have spent a lot of his time defending. And the team was set up in a way, as Coach Angus Eve would have said in his post-game remarks, to keep the game tight. Yeah. That's what his intentions were. And I don't think starting a player of Ovre and a talent that he is, and yes, I do think he is the future of Trinidad and Tobago football, but he would not have been able to show what he's good at because it was not going to be that type of game.
Yeah, I also listened to Angus Eve in his post-match press conference, and one of the things he pointed out that Aubrey and a couple of other players felt some amount of tightness ahead of the game, and so he made the decision not to start them, and Aubrey would have been one of those, with the hope that they would feel a little better, they would be able to keep the game tight, and then they would be able to make an impact in the second half. Of course, that did not happen, and as it turned out, by the time Aubrey came on, the game was pretty much done and dusted, and would have taken something close to a miracle for Trinidad to rally and get something out of that game. I want to start this conversation quickly because I want to get comments on this one, especially from Brent and Simon. Are you guys surprised that head coach Halldórsson had to defend, one, the selection of Dejon Whisper-Richards, a super talented 17-year-old, no doubt about it. And I think he was a little annoyed that he had to do it, which is why he came out swinging in the post-match press conference. But also that he had to defend his results up to this point, given that on very few occasions he's had what you would consider to be a full-strength Jamaican team.
Yeah, I think what often happens there is you get journalists at press conferences after the games who don't follow Jamaican football closely. They might be American journalists probably at this tournament, and they're looking at the stat that he hasn't won a game since he took charge. Now, that is the stat. That was a fact until last night. And so people are going to ask, is it a relief? Does it feel like... And to be honest, having followed a little bit the progress of the team over the last 8 to 9 months, it hasn't felt like it's a program, a team that's in crisis, that can't get a win. It's felt like there's something being building, something being worked on, and that now we're starting to see, the real Jamaica team that he wants to see put out. So I think he was maybe wanting to, sort of correct the record as it was with that. I mean, the friendly matches, he's right. These days, friendly matches don't count for a lot. They're a chance to experiment, look at players. And he could, he didn't say it, but he could legitimately turn around and say, this is actually my team now. This is the team I've been building. This is what you're going to get.
And Simon, I can tell you something. It's not US journalists who have been saying it, because it was local journalists who reminded him following the defeat to Jordan, the friendly defeat to Jordan, that, hey, coach, it's 7 games and you haven't won any, Brent.
Right, okay, yeah, well, and I don't get to listen to the joys of Jamaican talk radio, so I don't know what the discussion has been about the coach locally, Well,
I'm not surprised because these are the same journalists that was questioning the way that the team was playing and not fully understanding what they have in their possession with that front three. This is the same people that questioned the selection of Richards. This is a kid that's just signed with Chelsea. This is a kid that. I've listened to Paul Craig Butler having to come on programs to defend this selection. I'm just amazed. We've not had a signature coming out of the Caribbean of this magnitude since Dwight York, and I stand to be corrected anytime. So a club of this size of Chelsea choosing a young man at that age, and you're questioning whether or not he should be part of a national senior team in the Caribbean. That, to me, it is crazy to even think that is even a conversation. Because we have to respect that, and Simon alluded to the fact, Chelsea doesn't miss a beat when it comes to it. It's one of the things they're good at, and we all know, is signing players. And they do a good job of scouting and making sure they have the best players. So I don't know why this is happening. Maybe it's a dislike to Craig Butler. I know that's something that was discussed. But to me, it was never a conversation.
Yeah, completely agree with you on that one, Brent. Of course, the USA recorded a dominant victory on Wednesday night as well, dispatching St. Kitts and Nevis by 6-0. The first 3 goals coming about 4 minutes apart between the 11th and 15th minutes. And easily, I watched that game, guys, and I thought to myself, this could be 10 or 11 or 12. And St. Kitts and Nevis did pretty well to pull it back to just 6 goals. Quick comment before we go to break. How do you see this group ending up now, the 2 that go through from here?
Yeah, I think USA and Jamaica go through that group. I don't see Trinidad being able to turn that situation around, and I think they are the 2 best teams there. And I think both of them have the potential to meet again later in the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, you know, from a Trinidad and Tobago perspective, I would love to see a result, but I'm not that naive, and I fully understand what we're working with. Look, this sport has levels, and Trinidad and Tobago is at a particular level, and USA and Jamaica are at another level, which is above them. And the fact of the matter is, USA would be looking at this game against Trinidad and Tobago to try to get a goal difference that would see them top the group.
Yeah, of course, a great way to end, Brent. Thanks very much, Brent and Simon. We'll be chatting again throughout the course of the tournament. And just on that point that Brent ended on about topping the group, one of the things that I think these teams will want to do is to avoid being in the half of Mexico. And that's part of why they'll really be pushing to ensure they finish top of Group A. We go to a break. We'll be back with more on the Sports Mag Zone.